Welcome to Suffolk Matters, where all of Suffolk County meets the men and women of Suffolk AME. News, opinions, and insights you won't hear anywhere else. Here's your host, the president of New York's largest independent union, Suffolk AME's Dan Levler.
Welcome to another edition of Suffolk Matters on Walk 97.5 and 94.3 The Shark, where Suffolk County meets the men and women of Suffolk AME. News and views you can't hear anywhere else. So my guest this morning is Suffolk County District Attorney Ray Tierney. Ray, thank you for joining us this morning.
Well, thanks for having me, Dan.
Yeah, listen, I mean, there's a ton of stuff to discuss. I mean, it's been about a year since we've had you on. Tons of things have gone on. I think stuff to be proud of. But let's just start with some background. We'll talk about, how you got into this, what motivated your career in both law and public service.
So I grew up in Suffolk County. Grew up in Comac with my parents, my four sisters. When I was in school, I knew how to write. I liked to talk. And when you're that type of kid, they say, "Oh, you should be a lawyer."
Right.
And so as a little kid, you say, "Oh, that go to court. You try cases. You put the bad guys away." It sounds like a fun thing to do.
Yeah.
So that's what I envisioned being a lawyer was. And then as you get older and more sophisticated, you realize there's a million different things that attorneys can do. But I still had that in my mind that I wanted to be a prosecutor. So when I had the opportunity to go to law school, I went to law school with the specific goal of becoming a prosecutor. Sure.
And listen, I mean, the ethics behind the job you have now, while you were being a prosecutor and now as district attorney, I mean, there's got to be some core, principles and values that guide you. You want to maybe expand on that a little bit and share with us?
Sure. I think that's a really under not spoken enough aspect of our job. The ethics are paramount, and I think you have to be guided by your personal. There are professional ethics, which are great,
right?
But over and above that, you have to be guided by your personal ethics. And obviously, I would never do a case that I wasn't comfortable with, and there were occasions in my career where I'm not comfortable with this case. I'm
right.
not going to do it. It's not about me, but if you don't believe in a case, you shouldn't do it.
Right.
And then also what you have to understand is oftentimes you have really bad people, and there's a really bad result. But notwithstanding all of that, you can't bring charges, and that's just the way it is. And you have to recognize that's our system, and move on.
Right.
So. It's it's a balance. I think I'm fortunate. I'm glad that I got this job after almost 30 years of being a prosecutor, because you sort of work all those things out as a young prosecutor, and you develop yourself professionally. And the most important thing to develop as an attorney, as a prosecutor, is your ethics.
Yeah. And listen, I mean, as district attorney, when you were a prosecutor, I mean, you're working for the people. Right. And so in this instance, the people of Suffolk County, and you're trying to provide justice for them. Right. Bad things happen. I find sometimes the conversation focuses a lot on the person who did the wrong thing.
Yeah.
And not what happened to the people the wrong thing was done to. And so, having that sense of justice and that want to kind of balance the scales. Right. I mean, I'm sure you would say, your prosecutors and the folks, you've got AME members that work in your building. I mean, I would say on some level that's got to be part of the driving force there, wanting to balance those scales and fix the wrongs that happen.
Sure. I think when you look about some of the changes in our state law, I think that a lot of those changes have been implemented and without due consideration being given to victims. I think when you talk about so-called justice reform, I think our victims have been left behind a little bit. So we advocate for our victims, which is something that I'll always do in my office. But I think it goes. It's bigger than that. I think, and people I don't think realize all the things that the district attorney's office does. So it is about the victims first and foremost, and it's about cases and it's about prosecutions, but it's also about community engagement, education, prevention, diversion, when appropriate. So all of those things, given in a particular case may or may not be appropriate, but all of it is really important.
Yeah, so I think about, in reference to some of that, something like the Shot Spotter program, and being able to create a means to get immediate police response in an area where, you've got the ability to, locate shots fired before even anyone calls it in.
Yeah, I think if you look at it, and that's where I'm glad that I had so many years as a prosecutor in a lot of different jurisdictions, because when I took office, the first thing we did is we did an examination of all our gun violence in Suffolk County, and what we found was about 50% of our gun violence occurred in 1% of the land area of Suffolk County, about 22 miles, spread over about 8 or 9 different communities. So we said, since and it sort of starts there and then radiates out. So if it's going to be so concentrated, we should set up the shot detection system, which is incredibly accurate, incredibly helpful. And what it'll do is it'll get first responders out there on average about 5 minutes quicker. And in a situation where somebody gets shot, where seconds matter, 5 minutes is going to change some lives, save some lives. And also, I think the worst thing that could happen in any community is when gunshots are fired and there's no response. It makes people feel helpless. People feel like, oh, we're under siege, and there's no one who's helping us, no one who's even cares enough to investigate. So our goal is every time a shot gets fired in Suffolk County, there is a response. We start our investigation. So that's what we did. And then if you look, so this is really the first year that we've had Shot Spotter, and our shootings are down about 63%.
It's amazing.
And that's with a number of shot fire instances being detected only by Shot Spotter. So we're actually upping our numbers over last year, because Shot Spotter, every time, it's not just those that get reported. It's like basically every shot that gets fired in these particular instances. So if you look at our shots fired instances, we're probably down close to 80% from the prior year. And the prior year, we were down significantly from, prior to me taking office. So it's made a profound impact on, these underserved communities. And, again, when we took office, we said, why in one area a kid goes to sleep every night and, hears gunshots, right? And then you go 3 miles over, that kid who lives in that area never hears gunshots.
Never hears it.
It's not acceptable. So we want to make sure that we keep people safe. We do it in an even-handed manner.
Yeah.
So that's a big aspect of trying to keep everybody safe.
Yeah. Oh, it's a big deal. It is. And so, we got a lot of great things to talk about today, but maybe we can just touch on like a learning experience. It's, a new, coming from being a prosecutor to district attorney, the role has changed a little bit. Times have changed, right? All of these things. So what was a learning experience from you guys?
I think the biggest, the learning experience or just a change in perspective. I think I've been a prosecutor, I've been a federal prosecutor, I've been a state prosecutor, but you're not the guy, you're a guy.
Yeah.
So you're given a case, and it's a really difficult case, and they ask you to examine a certain aspect of it, and you work really hard, and you examine the aspect of it, and at the end of the day, you submit your findings. Then as you walk out the door, you kind of say, well, I'm glad I don't have to make that decision.
Right.
And now
you do.
Me, amongst, our partners and the hierarchy in my office, we're making that decision. So I think that one of the things when you can't really appreciate it until you do it. And then once you do it, it does have, it affects you.
Yeah. Yeah.
But that's it. And then, I think in general, the good thing about the criminal justice system, a good thing about being a prosecutor, and I think the reason why most people who have ever been prosecutors say it was the best job they've ever had, is every case is new. Every case, you learn something like almost every day. Yeah. And, just when you think you've seen it all, another case comes down the line and you say to yourself, wow, I've never seen that before. And if you look at you look at Gilgo, you look at the body parts case, it's just so many different cases with sort of different fact patterns, different aspects of the law. So it's interesting. And I think that's why people really like working in the DA's office, and I'm not just talking about the attorneys. I'm talking about our support staff, investigators, our auditors, whatever it may be, because it's always something a little different.
Yeah, that makes sense. It does. And so, there's a lot of aspects in government that help bring justice for people, and the DA's office is one of those. But you've got the lab, you've got the medical examiner's office, the police department, all of these things. Valuable contributions to getting to that point to provide justice for the people in Suffolk County. So, can you speak a little bit to the valuable contributions from all these different aspects inside of government that come and feed into your office?
I mean, the contributions are invaluable, like absolutely invaluable. And I think, before we got on air, we were talking a little bit about the changes in the law, especially discovery reform, and how quickly we have to get this massive amount of information. We have to download it, evaluate it, and then turn it over to the court and defense counsel. And, we can't do that without the cooperation of our partners. So, in Suffolk County, we have our, in the East End, we have the various jurisdictions out there. They've been great. Our Suffolk County Police Department, obviously, they've been great. Suffolk County Sheriff's Office have been great. Suffolk County Medical Examiner's Office, really, really fantastic, really instrumental. I mean, Gilgo is just but one example. Just basically all our cases, they've been great partners. And then you break down the components. You break down, so you have your medical examiners, your lab techs, and your police officers, but then all of the support staff of all of the various agencies, principally dealing with my support staff. So if there's a breakdown in any one of those relationships, the case suffers. And so what I've been really gratified about is not only the great work that my support staff and not only my ADAs do a great job, but all the people that support them in my office, and working with the support staffs in the other agencies. And that's not something that people see. Like you take a case and all of a sudden, there's in 30 days, we've downloaded, hard drives worth of material that we've gathered from, half a dozen other agencies. That doesn't happen by magic. No. That happens through, hard work and expertise. And that's the people in our office dealing with the other offices.
Yeah, and listen, we're very proud of our members and the work that they do. We believe that they're altruistic by nature. First and foremost, most of our members could be doing something else and have chosen to be part of their community and to be part of government to provide for their community. But you and I have had some chances to collaborate on ways to make some changes over at the district attorney office and create some pathways for growth for some of our AME members. So could you elaborate on some of those changes and the reasons behind them?
I knew you were going to ask me that. So we've done so much
right
that I wanted to make sure that I had it all.
Right.
And, first and foremost, I want to thank you because you've been, when we came into the office, you take office and you take it subject to your predecessor. So, obviously budgets and positions get done long before you first take office. So I take office subject to, whatever happened before me. And then once you get in there and you familiarize yourself with the job, now you say, okay, well, I think if we move this, we tweak this a little bit. And one thing that governmental entities hate is change.
Yes.
They hate, and they're just reflexively like, wait a second, that sounds like it's something different. So you need, a good working relationship. You need to develop trust. And, working with AME, working with our county exec and our other partners, we've really been able to, I think, transform the DA's office to make sure that it works best for us and consequently the people, citizens. So what we've done is we've added 130 positions since I've been there. Up to that, out of those 130 positions, 99 are union positions. Mm-hmm. So that's 76%. So that's been a tremendous boon to our office. And what we've done is we wanted to make all of the DA's offices in New York State are suffering from attrition. They're losing people because the job is becoming more difficult and more demanding. So I think what we wanted to do is we wanted to attract people from Suffolk County because they would have a better chance of staying longer. And then we wanted to give them, it wasn't a situation where we got a really good worker who was working at an entry-level job. We didn't want them in 6 months or a year to say, well, thank you very much, but now I've got a chance to get a career somewhere else. So we wanted to develop these career paths within our own agency.
Right.
And again, we couldn't do that without the county executive and without your help. So what we've done, just by example, we've tried to get higher pay for our positions, but we've also tried to change, modify our positions where people can, as they develop, get into new titles and new positions and get, higher salaries. Sure. So, we've done that with our crime victim advocates, with our paralegals, with our guards, as well as numerous other titles. So, with regard to paralegals, we introduced legislation, which again, through cooperation, was passed. And then after getting that legislation passed, we worked with civil service, with AME, on developing testing and promotions for these positions. And before we got there, when you were a paralegal, you were a paralegal, and that was it.
Right.
Now there's a career path. We have paralegals, we have senior paralegals, and then we have principal paralegals.
Right.
So again, as the individual gets the job and progresses through the agency, their good work and their experience will reflect in their title and their pay. Again, that will help us keep really good people, which we have. So since we started, we had 20 paralegals that we've promoted to senior paralegal.
Right.
And then, they will then move on to principal paralegal in a couple of years. Again, a career path.
Right.
We've also done that for our crime intelligence analysts. When I got to the office, I think we had 2 analysts.
Right.
Now we have 21.
Yep.
And we've given them various titles. They're research tech, research analyst, senior research analyst. And again, they could pass through the ranks, get promotions, get different job responsibilities. And as they're helping us, we're helping them. We've done that for crime victims advocates. We've doubled the amount of crime victims advocate. When I started, we had 6. Now we have 12. We're looking for another 30 additional crime victims advocates. Mm-hmm. And the good thing about this is we're going to get them through a grant. So
I wanted to get to that. Yeah.
Yeah. So that means that we're giving better services to Suffolk County. We're giving career opportunities to these people, to the crime analysts, but we're not asking the taxpayers to foot the bill.
Right.
We're getting grants from outside agencies. So in my first 2 years, we got about $29 million in grants. My third year, we got even more than that. So what that means is, although we're getting bigger, we're not taking a bigger bite out of people's tax bill.
Right.
We're getting it through grants. So the other thing is, I know I started what I noticed with discovery reform. We needed a discovery expediter position, so we started that. That was just we started with 8. It was wildly successful. We now have 35, and we've changed that title. So now you could be a senior discovery expediter. Again, career path.
Growth, yeah.
We did the same thing with our IT core. We've done that. We've pushed through promotions of our exceptionally performing staff, those individuals who were there who are doing a great job. So our payroll supervisor has been upgraded to payroll manager. Our legal secretaries can be pushed up to administrative assistants, our guards to couriers, and our maintenance mechanic 2, who's doing a great job, is now a maintenance mechanic 3. And we also, there were previously unused titles. So there were community relations assistants, neighborhood aides, grant technicians, maintenance mechanics, public relations associates. These were positions that were never used in the DA's office. We used them. Also, when I took office, there were 58 funded for but vacant positions.
Yeah.
Now we have 6.
Excellent.
All of these things, when taken together, is really a positive thing for our office. And what I always tell my people is, the DA's office success is all of our success.
Right.
And that's why we do community outreach. That's why we do press releases, because when we have success, we want to tell people about it.
Yeah.
And what happens is, when I go out in the public says, oh, you did such a good job on this case or that case or whatever. Our elected officials say the same thing. So then when I go before the legislature or before the county executive and say, listen, all these good cases, we're doing it because of analysts. We're doing it because of our crime victims advocate or our paralegals or our administrative assistants. So we need more of these things. And by the way, I'm going to meet you halfway because I'm going to get a grant.
Right.
So, all of those things have really been successful. And I think, again, if you want to have success, it can't be just, it can't be just one area of your practice is doing really well,
right,
and then everybody else is suffering. Got to bring everybody up. That's what we try to do. I think that's what we've done. The other thing which we're really going to try to push for is paid child care leave. We have a way, I think, that we can do it. We're going to talk to our county executive. I think he has some ideas as well, and we'd like to make that a reality because, again, not only is it the right thing to do, but if we want to attract really competent women who want to start a family, that's going to be a factor in deciding whether or not they want to come to our office.
No, and I got to tell you, we have had a lot of internal conversations, and we speak to our members from various different departments, and that's a big issue. Something that they're very much expecting me to work on as well, and I'm glad that your conversations are progressing the way they are because I'm going to keep having them also. Something I think that we need to solve, and it helps the taxpayer, right?
I think if you do it properly, it can. Absolutely. So that's what I think what we're all going to aim for.
Sure. So there's tons and tons of cases out there, and you reference how you've got all these different team members that are integral across the county to make these things happen and to get the successes of that office. Can you give us an example where one of our members, kind of contributed something on a major case that really, kind of helped things along? I
mean, I think if you look, we probably have over 6,000 cases a year.
Right.
And out of those 6,000 cases, probably a handful, for whatever reason, a person will come in and plead guilty at arraignment and the case is over. Out of the 6,000, that might happen a dozen times. So all those other cases, your members are helping. All the big cases that you read about, the bigger the case, the more help we need, and the more that help comes from our support staff, principally our AME members. So if you look at Gilgo, all of, we have analysts, auditors, crime victims advocates. They're integrally involved in all of the evidence. When you see all that evidence, that's all developed through our AME members. So if you nowadays in this digital and forensic world, all of this information that's out there, whether it be social media, whether it be phones, cell site information, DNA, navigation systems on cars, all these things, all this information has to get downloaded and analyzed. Our AME members working with our investigators and our ADAs, they're doing that work.
Right.
So, when we have all of our gang takedowns, that's a team.
Yeah.
That's working with our partners, working with our prosecutors, and working with our our AME members, our auditors, whatever it may be.
Yeah.
So basically every single case that you see that's of consequence, an AME member will have not only a role, but a significant role in it.
Yeah, I mean, that's excellent. That's the way I understand it to be. I guess I was trying to trick you into giving us a juicy story on a case, but anyway.
Well, it is, but it's just so commonplace.
Yeah.
So, so basically what'll happen is, you take, there's a shooting.
Right.
And there are certain allegations made one way or the other. Well, let's get the phones. Let's download the phones. Let's monitor phone calls. Let's look at that phone. Let's do searches. Let's see their social media. Let's see what their a person commits a murder. How to dispose of a dead body. An AME member will discover that search more than likely. And I'm not saying that happened, but I'm just using that by way of example.
Yeah.
Similar things have happened in numerous cases.
Sure.
So what we've tried to do is, and if you look at the Gilgo case and all of the evidence that we've put forth in that case, we try to. That's not a singular case. That's not an exception. That's how we do all our cases.
Right.
So, our financial cases, all of the auditors going through all of the financial records, and not only going through it, but then making sense of them. So, again, in the old days when I started, you would have a robbery case, and it's, somebody robs a 7-Eleven. There's an ID procedure. There's a witness statement. Maybe there's a gun and some proceeds caught from the perpetrator.
Right.
That's your case.
Yeah.
That's it. It doesn't get bigger than that. You could try it 3 days after it happens. That's it. Now, that same case, you got social media, you got navigation systems, you got video, you've got
Cell towers switching over
all
as
of
they're
this.
driving away and all. Yeah.
And, prosecutors can't do it alone. So obviously we use, our law enforcement partners, but also our support staff.
Yes. So I do want to get into goals with you, talking about looking forward, but I can't finish the interview without getting into the discovery law changes. It's stuff that we've been talking about. And again, any help we can be in that regard as well, because the fact of the matter is, our members want to see justice served as well. And like I say, you see the emphasis somewhat in the discovery law changes on the person that may or may not have committed the crime.
Yep.
But we don't want to leave the victims behind either, right? So,
Sure.
So, there was significant changes in discovery law. And so since it was introduced, obviously a lot of changes had to happen in the work that's being done back in the department and various departments. But now there's some proposals from the governor to change discovery law. Is there anything in there that you think is going to be helpful, harmful?
Well, I think there's, through the administrative process, not the administrative process, the legislative process, which is, it's like making sausage. There's a lot of things that go into it. So we're starting the legislative process now. The governor, I think, has made a proposal. She's added it to her budget. Now the legislators are going to get a chance to look at it. And then, what happens is then what comes out may look the same, probably won't, will look different. My thing with discovery reform, I think there needed to be changes in the system. So I'm not against reform. I think that what they did was they went too far. And the reason why they went too far is the system is very punitive. And everyone says, cops should have body-worn cameras. I agree. And criminal defendants should get all of the material in their case. I agree. But the original deadline was 15 days, and that's ridiculous. So when you think, and it's not a question of right or wrong. Should they get it or shouldn't they get it? It's an IT issue. And how do I go if there is a chase on the LIE that goes through Riverhead and into the East End and ends up in a crash in, say, West Hampton, right? So now we have state troopers, we have Suffolk County PD, we have East End jurisdictions, and all of those officers, say there's 50 officers from 5 different jurisdictions. They all have video, right? And so now, and they talk to victims, and those victims have privacy rights. So now we have to, not only do we have to get all that video, we have to redact it to make sure we're protecting the privacy rights of third parties. And then we have to download it, provide it to the defense and to the court within a condensed period of time. But not only do we have to do that, but we have to do all of the paperwork in all of the case. Not only do we have to do that, but there's a crime scene log, and there'll be 30 police officers. We have to get all of their disciplinary records. We have to get every single disciplinary record for all 30 of those police officers. And if we don't do it in, say, 60 days, well, then the case gets dismissed
automatically
on procedural grounds, on what I would say is a technicality. And that's not justice, right? So there needs to be common sense changes to that. So the governor is proposing something, which I applaud the governor for entering into this area, but it can't just be rhetoric. It has to be effective changes.
Right.
So if it's an effective change, I'll be the first one to thank her. If it's not an effective change, I'm going to be among the chorus of people saying, no, this is not fixing it. So I'll be cautiously optimistic, but I'll wait to see what happens.
Yes. Well, again, an aspect of all of that, these changes came into effect. but no funding was provided from the state to make up for all of this extra work that had to be condensed down. So it's another one of those, we in government, we refer to it as an unfunded mandate. The state says, here's what you're supposed to do now, and figure out how you're going to pay for it.
Well, the state loves the unfunded mandates, and the reason why our office has grown the way it's grown is because to comply with these onerous requirements. The one good thing I will say about the state, which I'm grateful for, is they do, to a certain extent, recognize it, and they will offer grants, and that's why we've been very aggressive in going out and getting as many grants as we can. Sure. Because without those grants, we would not be able to function.
Absolutely, yeah. So now looking forward, right? All the things that have happened, all the things you've learned, all of the growth that's happened in the department and everything else. Let's talk about goals moving forward for the district attorney's office, just in general. Yeah.
Sure, I think it's more of the same. I think we started out, we talked about gang and gun violence and shooting incidents. Those are down, right? It's great to get them down. Now you got to keep them down.
Yep.
So we'll continue to work on that, and hopefully we'll continue to have similar success in that area. Probably our biggest priority is the opioid overdose crisis. So last year, I think we had 15 murders. One got reclassified. So we had 16 murders last year, which is, I'm being told, it's the lowest that in Suffolk County since the statistics were being. I don't know if that's true, but
right.
That's what I'm being told. In any event, in a county of 1.5 million, that is a really good number. Obviously, one person is one too many, but it's a good number. It's an indicative that we're a safe county.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
But that's the good news. The bad news is in that same time frame, the numbers for overdoses aren't in, but I'm going to tell you it's going to be around 450. So we have 16 homicides and 450 about.
Right.
Opioid overdoses, and those are 450 people whose families lost them, who they've lost their lives, and it's 450 people. And we actually our legislators asked us. We did the demographics on it. It almost mirrors our demographics, meaning it affects every single community, every single however you want to categorize people by ethnicity. By socioeconomic status, by religion, whatever it is.
Age, right?
Yeah. They tend to be younger. That's really the only thing. But otherwise, it's just it is all across Suffolk County. So this is something we need to address. So we're going to continue. The one thing when I took office, I was always been a prosecutor. And the thing is, like being a prosecutor, I played sports as a kid, and I always said it was akin to playing sports. So it's where you show up, there are rules. Shut up about the rules. Don't complain about the rules. Just do your job, and hopefully you'll get a good result. And then you go on to the next game.
Right.
I do talk about the way our legislate, because we can make tweaks to our law. We can make tweaks to our drug laws that really help to make us safer. So we're going to continue to advocate for that, for changing our narcotics laws, for changing our fentanyl laws, for having a death by dealer statute. We need all of those things. So that'll be a priority. The other two things are our quality of life crimes, which really I didn't fully appreciate until I took office. But you're talking about catalytic converters, you're talking about retail theft. Again, we've had great success in those areas. We have gang organized groups coming from outside of our jurisdiction coming in. And whether it's catalytic converters or committing commercial burglaries, we're seeing that. We want to address that. And street racing.
Yeah. Yeah.
You saw the recent incident with the Suffolk County police officer. Our roads are unbelievably dangerous across the board, across the country, across New York State. Suffolk County, we have the most miles of roads. We have the most registered drivers of any county, so it's not surprising that we lead in street racing, highway fatalities. But we have to let people know that if you're going to drive while impaired by a substance, or you're going to think you're going to take over our streets we're not going to stand for it.
Right.
We've worked, again, with our great legislature, our great county executive. We passed laws. We're going to take your car, and we're going to do the same work we do on all our cases. So if you drive around like a reckless fool and you get in your car and you drive off and you think you got away with it, well, we've got video. We've got a lot of other methods that we could use. And if we could figure out and make the case against you, we will go and get you. We will take your car. We will hold you responsible for what you do, because we're done with it. We are done with it.
Yep. Yes. So my guest this morning, Suffolk County District Attorney Ray Tierney. Ray, thanks again, spending some time talking about the great work that you and the folks in your office do, our AME members across the county contributing to, and carving time out of your busy schedule to have this conversation.
Thank you.
And to our listeners, we'll speak to you next week.